My name's Eric, and I'm 36. My wife, Lauren, is 33. We've been married for 8 years, together for 10. From the outside, we looked like one of those picture-perfect couples. She's smart, beautiful, and ambitious, and I thought we had a solid partnership. We've got a nice house, decent jobs. I'm in IT, she's in marketing, and no kids. Lauren's decision, though I've always wanted them. First, our marriage was great. We laughed a lot, traveled, and supported each other's goals. But over the past year, something changed. Lauren became distant. She'd spend hours scrolling on her phone, her notifications always on silent. She started working late more often, claiming big projects were eating up her time. I wanted to believe her. She's always been career-driven. But my gut told me something wasn't right. Then there were the fights. Small arguments about household chores spiraled into full-blown shouting matches. She accused me of not being present, even though I was bending over backward to keep her happy. She stopped wanting to spend time with me even on weekends. I figured maybe she was just stressed, so I gave her space. I told myself it was just a rough patch and that we'd get through it. But then came the moment that planted the first real seed of doubt. About 2 months ago, I noticed she had a second phone. A sleek little burner-looking thing she tried to hide in her purse. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying, "Oh, it's just a work phone. My boss needs me to be available 24/7 for this campaign." Something about her tone didn't sit right with me. I'm not proud of this, but I started paying closer attention to her behavior after that. And that's when I realized just how much I'd been blind to. Lauren's work phone became my obsession. I started noticing how she'd clutch it tightly, even when she wasn't using it. She'd disappear into the bathroom with it for long stretches or take important calls outside, away from earshot. It didn't add up. She never used to need this much privacy. One Friday night, my suspicions reached a boiling point. Lauren had told me she was going out with her coworker, Jenna, for drinks. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it, but that night something felt off. Maybe it was the way she spent extra time getting ready, trying on 3 different dresses before settling on one that hugged her curves just right. Or maybe it was her perfume, a scent she only broke out for special occasions. She left around 7 p.m., and I sat in the living room, stewing. After an hour of pacing, I grabbed my phone and texted Jenna. We weren't close, but we chatted a few times at office parties. I kept it casual. "Hey Jenna, hope you and Lauren are having fun. Just checking in to see when she'll be back." She forgot to tell me. Her reply came back almost instantly. "Hey Eric, I'm not out with Lauren tonight. Haven't seen her since Tuesday." My heart sank. I reread the message 3 times, hoping I'd misunderstood. But there it was, clear as day. Lauren had lied. I didn't even bother texting her. Instead, I grabbed my car keys and drove to the bar she'd mentioned earlier. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. A part of me still hoped this was all a misunderstanding, that I'd find her and Jenna laughing over cocktails. But deep down, I already knew what I was going to find. When I pulled into the parking lot, I spotted her car right away. My stomach twisted into knots as I scanned the bar's patio, and that's when I saw her. She wasn't with Jenna. She was sitting at a corner table with some guy I didn't recognize. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and way too close for comfort. They were laughing, leaning in toward each other like they were sharing some intimate secret. And then it happened. He reached across the table and took her hand, stroking her fingers like they belonged to him. I sat there frozen, a mix of rage and heartbreak washing over me. My wife, the woman I'd built my life with, was holding hands with a stranger. Every fiber of my being wanted to storm over there and confront her, but I stopped myself. Not yet. I needed proof. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures from the car. Then I waited. They stayed for another 30 minutes before leaving together, his arm casually draped over her shoulders. I followed them, keeping my distance, until they pulled into the parking lot of a nearby motel. That was it. The final nail in the coffin. Lauren wasn't just lying to me. She was cheating, and she wasn't even trying that hard to hide it. I drove home in silence, my mind racing. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the realization that I trusted her blindly for so long. The next morning, Lauren came home around 10 a.m., looking surprisingly fresh for someone who'd spent the night at Jenna's. She strolled into the kitchen where I was sitting with a mug of coffee and her favorite blueberry pancakes on the table. A routine I'd kept alive despite her growing distance. "Morning," she said brightly, grabbing a glass of water like nothing was wrong.
I'm starving.
"Jenna and I got so drunk last night. She's hilarious when she's tipsy." I didn't respond right away. I just sipped my coffee, staring at her. Finally, I said, "How's the motel food?" She froze mid-sip, her eyes darting to mine. "What are you talking about?" I set my mug down calmly, though my heart was pounding. "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Lauren. I saw you at the bar with him, and I saw where you went after." For a split second, her face betrayed her. Shock, fear, guilt, but she quickly recovered. "Wow, Eric, really? You're spying on me now? That's pathetic." "Spying?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You lied to me, Lauren. You said you were with Jenna, but you were out with some guy. And then you went to a motel. Who is he?" She rolled her eyes, setting the glass down with a loud thunk. "His name's Alex. Okay? He's just a friend. We were talking about work stuff, and I didn't feel safe driving home, so I crashed there." "Don't lie to me," I snapped, slamming my hand on the table. "I saw you holding hands. I saw how close you were. You expect me to believe you were just talking about work?" She crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You know what, Eric? Maybe if you weren't such a paranoid control freak, I wouldn't need someone to talk to in the first place." My jaw dropped. "Are you seriously trying to blame me for this? You cheated, Lauren. You lied. And now you're acting like it's my fault." "Oh, grow up," she shot back, her voice dripping with disdain. "It's not like we've been happy lately. You're boring, Eric. All you do is work and sit around. Alex makes me feel alive. He listens to me, pays attention to me. Things you stopped doing years ago." Her words were like a knife to the gut. For a moment, I just stared at her, struggling to process what she'd said. Finally, I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the tile. "You know what, Lauren? I've done everything I could to make this marriage work. I trusted you, supported you, loved you. And this is how you repay me." She shrugged, as if my anger was an overreaction. "Maybe if you'd been more exciting, this wouldn't have happened." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're unbelievable," I said, shaking my head. "You're not even sorry, are you?" Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. That afternoon, I packed a bag and left. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Lauren thought she could walk all over me and get away with it. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. After I left the house, I drove aimlessly for hours, anger boiling in my veins. Lauren's smug attitude replayed in my head like a broken record. Her complete lack of remorse, her cold dismissal of everything we'd built. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a declaration that she thought I was weak, someone she could step on without consequences. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I crashed at my buddy Nathan's place that night. He'd been my best friend since college. One of the few people who could talk me down when I was on the edge. Over beers in his garage, I spilled everything. The lies, the motel, the confrontation. Nathan listened quietly, then said, "Man, that's brutal. But you can't let her win. You need to hit her where it hurts." "Like what? Divorce her?" I asked bitterly. "She'll probably come out ahead with half my stuff." "No," he said, shaking his head. "That's not enough. You need to expose her. Make sure everyone knows exactly who she is and what she did." The idea stuck with me. Lauren cared deeply about appearances. Her polished image, her carefully curated social media presence, the way her coworkers admired her. She thrived on being seen as perfect. If people found out the truth about her, it would be devastating. The first thing I did was gather evidence. I had the pictures from the bar and motel, but I needed more. Over the next few days, I started going through everything, her emails, her texts, even her social media. She hadn't bothered to change her passwords, which only fueled my rage. She thought she was untouchable. What I found made my blood boil. She and Alex weren't just having an affair. They'd been carrying on for months, maybe longer. There were messages full of flirty banter, suggestive photos, and explicit details about their encounters. But the real kicker? She'd been bad-mouthing me to him, painting me as this dull, controlling husband who didn't get her. It wasn't just Alex, either. In her texts with her friends, she bragged about the affair like it was some glamorous secret. She'd even mocked me for being too blind to notice. One message to Jenna. Yes, the same coworker she'd claimed to be with. Read, "Eric's such a loser. He wouldn't know excitement if it hit him in the face. At least Alex knows how to treat a woman." I stared at my phone, seething. Lauren didn't just cheat on me. She disrespected me, humiliated me, and treated me like a joke. If she wanted excitement, I was about to give her some. The next step was to play it cool. I went back to the house the following weekend under the pretense of talking things through. Lauren, of course, acted like she was in control. She greeted me with a smug smile, as if she'd already won. "I'm glad you're back," she said, leaning casually against the kitchen counter. "I knew you'd come to your senses. I just needed some time to think," I said evenly, masking my anger. "Maybe we can work this out." She raised an eyebrow, clearly suspicious. "Really? You're not going to bring up Alex again?"
No, primelit.
"I want to move forward. Maybe counseling could help." Lauren's smirk widened, and for a second, I thought she was going to laugh. "Counseling? Sure, if that's what you need to feel better." Inside, I was seething, but I kept my cool. I needed her to let her guard down. Over the next few days, I pretended to play along, acting apologetic, agreeing to try again, even cooking her dinner one night like old times. All the while, I was putting my real plan into motion. Once Lauren believed I was back under her thumb, I got to work. I wasn't just going to walk away quietly while she destroyed my dignity. No, she wanted to play games. I was about to flip the board. Step 1 was leveraging the evidence I had. I compiled everything, the texts, the photos, screenshots of her flirty messages with Alex, and even the snide remarks she made about me to her friends. I created a neatly organized folder on my laptop labeled Lauren's Greatest Hits. It was sickly satisfying, like preparing a weapon to strike back after months of being blindsided. Step 2 was finding the right audience. Lauren had always been meticulous about her image. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of fancy dinners, polished selfies, and inspirational quotes about living your best life. Her workplace, too, was a source of pride. She was up for a promotion and loved bragging about how much her boss valued her professionalism. The irony of it all made me laugh. I decided to start small. One night, after Lauren had gone to bed, I created an anonymous email account. I drafted a message to her boss, attaching a few key screenshots of her messages with Alex, including one where she joked about hooking up during work trips. I kept the email professional but damning, hinting that Lauren's extracurricular activities might not align with the company's values. The next morning, Lauren seemed blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. She was sitting at the breakfast table, scrolling through her phone. "I've got a big meeting today," she said with a smug smile. "They're finally discussing my promotion." I bit back a grin. "Good luck," I said innocently. "I'm sure you'll do great." Step 3 was a bit more public. Using a burner social media account, I uploaded a series of screenshots to a local community page Lauren was active on. I didn't include her name but added just enough context for people to connect the dots. The caption read, "Ever wonder if someone's picture-perfect life is just a lie? Here's a little peek behind the curtain." The post blew up faster than I expected. Comments flooded in, some speculating, others outright recognizing Lauren from the details. People were tagging her friends, co-workers, and even Alex himself. By noon, the post had hundreds of likes and shares. Lauren's phone started buzzing like crazy. She frowned, scrolling through the notifications. "What the hell is this?" she muttered, her face growing pale. "What's wrong?" I asked, feigning concern. She shot me a glare. Someone's posting lies about me online. Oh no, I said, barely hiding my smirk. That sounds awful. She stormed off to the bedroom, probably to do damage control, while I sat back, savoring the chaos. The real blow came later that evening. Lauren came home from work looking furious and rattled. She threw her purse onto the couch and rounded on me. Did you do this? She snapped. Do what? I asked, playing dumb. Don't play games, Eric. My boss called me into his office today. He said he received an anonymous tip about inappropriate conduct. He put my promotion on hold. I shrugged. That's unfortunate. But hey, maybe if you'd been more focused on work instead of, Alex. Her face turned beet red. You son of a bitch, she hissed. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said calmly. You did that all by yourself. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. Lauren paced the living room, her face a storm of fury and panic. Do you have any idea what you've done, Eric? She shouted, her voice trembling. You're destroying my reputation, my career. I leaned back on the couch, watching her unravel with a calm I hadn't felt in months. I'm not destroying anything, Lauren. I'm just revealing who you really are. If the truth ruins you, maybe that says more about you than me. You think you're so clever, don't you? She spat. What about you? Do you think people won't judge you for being this petty and vindictive? Oh, they might, I said with a shrug. But at least I can look at myself in the mirror and know I didn't betray the person I vowed to love and respect. Can you say the same? Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For once, Lauren didn't have a clever comeback. That night, I heard her talking on the phone with Jenna in hushed, frantic tones. I didn't need to eavesdrop to know what they were discussing. Lauren was scrambling to control the damage, trying to figure out who had leaked the screenshots. Little did she know I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I called our bank and started the process of separating our accounts. I also met with a divorce lawyer, armed with all the evidence I'd collected. The lawyer was impressed by how thorough I'd been. This will make things a lot easier for you, she said, giving me a reassuring smile. Judges don't look kindly on infidelity, especially when there's proof. By the time I got back to the house that afternoon, Lauren was sitting at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. She looked up when I walked in, her face pale and drawn. We need to talk, she said quietly. I think we're past that point, I replied, dropping a folder on the table. That's the divorce paperwork. I suggest you read it carefully. Her eyes widened as she opened the folder and flipped through the pages. You're divorcing me? What did you expect, Lauren? That I'd just forgive you? That we'd go back to playing happy couple while you sneak around with Alex? You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. She slammed the folder shut. You're making a mistake. You'll regret this, Eric. Maybe, I said, meeting her glare. But I'll take regret over staying with someone who doesn't respect me. Over the next few days, Lauren's world continued to crumble. The community post I'd made gained even more traction, with people openly calling her out for her behavior. At work, her boss issued a formal reprimand, and while she wasn't fired, the promotion she'd been gunning for was given to someone else. As for Alex, it seemed the public fallout had scared him off. He stopped responding to Lauren's texts, leaving her furious and alone. I caught her once, standing in the kitchen, yelling into her phone, "You're just going to ghost me now? After everything we've been through?" She slammed the phone down, tears streaming down her face. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of pity. But then I remembered all the times she'd laughed at me behind my back, all the lies she'd told, and all the ways she'd disrespected our marriage. That pity vanished as quickly as it came. Lauren spent the next few days alternating between denial and desperation. Some days, she acted like everything was fine, as if I'd magically forget her betrayal. Other days, she was furious, accusing me of ruining her life and being vindictive. But then she tried a new tactic, begging. One evening, as I was packing up the last of my things to stay at Nathan's while the divorce processed, she cornered me in the bedroom. Her eyes were red from crying, her makeup smeared. It was a far cry from the confident, polished woman I once knew. "Eric," she said softly, blocking the doorway. "Can we please talk? Just hear me out." I crossed my arms, wary but willing to let her speak. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath. "I know I messed up, okay? I know I hurt you, but we've been together for so long. Doesn't that mean anything to you? We can fix this. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut Alex off completely. I'll do whatever it takes." I stared at her, searching for any sign of sincerity. "Why now?" I asked. "Why not when I first confronted you? Or when I gave you a chance to be honest?" She looked down, biting her lip. "I didn't realize how much I stood to lose," she admitted. "I took you for granted, and I'm sorry. I am. Please, don't let one mistake end everything we've built." "One mistake," I repeated, my voice rising. "Lauren, this wasn't a mistake. It was a months-long affair. You lied to me, humiliated me, and treated me like I was nothing. That wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Then she said the words that killed any remaining shred of pity I had for her. "I wouldn't have cheated if you weren't so boring," she said, her voice breaking. "I needed excitement, Eric. You weren't giving me that." I took a step closer, my voice cold. "And now you've got all the excitement you wanted, Lauren. Are you happy with how it turned out?" She didn't answer, just stood there, tears streaming down her face. I pushed past her and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind me. The next day, Lauren tried one last desperate move. She showed up at Nathan's house unannounced, clutching a photo album from our wedding. Nathan opened the door, ready to tell her off, but I stepped forward. "What do you want, Lauren?" I asked, exhaustion evident in my voice. She held up the album. "Look at this, Eric. Look at what we had. All those memories, the love we shared. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I shook my head, a bitter smile on my face. "It did once. But then you threw it away for a fling with Alex. You can't use the past to erase what you've done." She opened the album to a picture of us dancing at our wedding. Her in her flowing white dress, me in my suit, both of us smiling like we had the world ahead of us. "I still love you," she whispered. "Please, don't give up on us." For a moment I hesitated. The weight of the years we'd spent together pressed down on me. But then I thought about the texts, the lies, the smug way she'd acted when I first confronted her. And I knew there was no going back. "You love me?" I asked, my voice steady. "If you loved me, Lauren, you wouldn't have done what you did. Love isn't just a word. It's actions. And yours showed me exactly how much I meant to you." Her shoulders sagged, and she let the album slip from her hands. It hit the floor with a dull thud. Without another word, she turned and walked away. Lauren's visit to Nathan's house was her last attempt at reconciliation, and when it failed, she went quiet. I expected more drama, but instead, she shifted her energy to making the divorce as messy as possible. She dragged her feet on signing papers, nitpicked every detail, and tried to claim a bigger share of our assets than she deserved. My lawyer, Jessica, wasn't having any of it. "She's grasping at straws," Jessica said during one of our meetings. "She knows she doesn't have a leg to stand on, especially with all the evidence you've provided. Just stay patient." It wasn't easy. Every time I thought we were close to wrapping things up, Lauren found another way to stall. She even had the audacity to ask for alimony, claiming that the stress of the divorce was affecting her ability to work. My lawyer shot that down immediately. Meanwhile, her public image continued to take a beating. Word about her affair spread like wildfire in her social circles and at work. Several of her coworkers distanced themselves from her, and she eventually left her job, blaming office politics. Alex, her so-called partner in excitement, had disappeared completely, leaving her to face the fallout alone. A few months later, the divorce was finalized. I got to keep the house, my car, and most of our joint savings. Lauren walked away with little more than her personal belongings and a bruised ego. As I signed the final papers, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a lingering sense of disbelief that this was how it all ended. "I'm proud of you," Jessica said as she handed me the finalized documents. "Most people would have crumbled under this kind of betrayal, but you handled it with grace." Grace wasn't exactly how I'd describe it, but I appreciated her words. That evening, I stood in the now empty guest room where Lauren had stored her things before leaving for good. The room felt oddly quiet, like the silence after a storm. I leaned against the doorframe, taking a deep breath. It was over. Really, truly over. For the first time in months, I felt free. Moving on wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I threw myself into work, picked up new hobbies, and reconnected with old friends. Nathan was a constant presence, always dragging me out for beers or hikes to keep my mind off the past. I also started therapy, which turned out to be one of the best decisions I'd ever made. My therapist, Dr. Harris, helped me unpack not just the betrayal but also the ways I'd lost myself in my marriage. "You deserve a partner who values you," she told me. "Someone who doesn't need excitement at your expense." Her words stuck with me. For years, I'd bent over backward trying to make Lauren happy, ignoring my own needs and boundaries. It was time to start prioritizing myself. One evening, Nathan invited me to a game night at his house. It was nothing fancy, just a group of friends playing board games and drinking beer. That's where I met Amy. She was one of Nathan's coworkers, there on a whim after her plans fell through. We clicked instantly, bonding over our shared love of sarcasm and terrible 80s action movies. By the end of the night, we were swapping numbers and planning to meet up for coffee. Looking back now, I realize how much I learned from the whole ordeal. Lauren's betrayal was devastating, but it forced me to take a hard look at my life and what I wanted from a relationship. I'd spent so much time trying to make things work with someone who didn't respect me that I forgot to respect myself. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, here's my advice. Trust your gut. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you love someone. And most importantly, know your worth. You deserve a partner who values you, not someone who treats you like an option. As for Lauren, I haven't heard from her since the divorce was finalized. From what I've heard through mutual friends, she's still trying to rebuild her life, but that's no longer my concern. I'm focused on my own life now, one where I'm in control of my happiness. Thank you for staying with me. This crazy journey is finally over and I'm ready for what's next. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more interesting stories. And leave a comment with what you would do in this situation. See you in the next videos.